How was the experience of working with Tony Lee and Stas in the artistic concept and narrative of the Mandrake Project?
Well, Tony Lee and Stas have been absolutely amazing. I started working with Tony Lee because the artistic concept of Mandrake, if you like, or well, the story and the characters, and that's basically my story. So I went to Z2 Comics and they introduced me to Tony Lee, and we got on great. And I realized that, you know, I've never written comic script before. I've written stories, I've written books, I've written screenplays, but comic script is something different. And Tony and I get on great. So we are well on the way to script number 3 for episode 3 at the moment. Obviously looking at which artists to get. Tony was the guy that suggested Stas Johnson. And as soon as I saw his stuff, I was like, this guy's brilliant. So that's how Stas and Tony and myself got together. And in fact, we have another artist on board now, Peter Kowalski, who is doing a lot of every time we do a flashback or a scene in a different time period or something, then Peter will be looking after those duties. And of course we have Bill, I keep saying his name wrong, I guess, but Bill Sinkiewicz on doing the cover art, which is just amazing, so it's a great team.
On your solo albums, you usually write songs in partnership, first with Janik, then with Alex Dickinson, and since Balls to Picasso with Roy C. On this new album, you got almost the entire band from the previous album, Tyranny of Souls. These are two rare things among solo artists, and I think it's a good thing to treat it like a band. How important it is to you to work as a team on a solo album, whether in songwriting or having the same team from the previous album?
Well, I always, even though it's called a solo album, for me, it's always a band. So I treat it like, I'm in a band for my solo record. I mean, we're taking a band on tour, and we are going to be a band and do things that we do. We're going to hang out and just, have fun and play chess. I don't know.
Almost 20 years have passed since Tyranny of Souls. What do you feel has changed personally when you rediscover solo music composition after so long?
Well, I certainly didn't feel the need to go and just reproduce stuff I'd done in my past, because a lot of it, I think I'm very proud of all of it, but some bits of it in particular, something like Chemical Wedding is obviously a highlight. Tyranny of Souls was an album that was it was unfortunate that we did that album. We had really nowhere to put it, as it were, because I was so busy with Maiden, which was fine. But now we've got some space, and back in 2014, I had really quite a few ideas, so I presented them, and the idea was that there would be a story running through the album. As it turns out, there's a story running through the comic, which is a 3-year project, a kind of a separate issue from the album. But the album itself has become a musical story, not a literal story.
Understanding that the Mandrake Project isn't just an album, that it's a multi-dimensional project intertwining music and graphic storytelling, Dr. Necropolis and Professor Lazarus represent opposing forces within the storyline, each with their own motivations and visions for the future. What inspired the dynamic between these characters? And if you can discuss if there's any particular character or element of them that resonates with you personally.
Oh, there's characters, the characters in the movie. Sorry, in the movie. I wish it was a movie. Maybe one day.
That will be cool.
Yeah, but No, of course, I I take elements from situations in my life, from people I've met, from people I've encountered, and things like that. And I take them and I import them into the motivations of characters, and I try and make the motivations of the characters fit the problems or the trials or the issues that they've had when they were brought up, their upbringing, things that happened to them, and sometimes just some people are just basically not very nice, you know. So all of those things go into the pot. But yes, I mean, I you know, I write from I write from people that I have met or know, or people that maybe I haven't necessarily met them, but you know, I've seen plenty of documentaries about them on TV. You know,
As a creator, what do you feel that you can explore with your music that's different that what you have presented, you know, throughout all your musical trajectory?
well, I mean, every time you write a new album, it's like you're giving it's like you're giving birth to something with a personality and something with a little bit of individual soul. It's not something that's just thrown together. I mean, probably some people do that, but not me. But for me, it's a really important event. I mean, this one has been nearly 20 years before it's finally been released. And so, you know, for me, it's just about making the songs uh, different without trying too hard, authentic, you know, without having to go around telling lies and pretending you're something that you're not in the music. You know, the storytelling in the songs should be represented by the music that plays it, if you see what I mean. So there are some cool stories in this record, and that's why every track is different. Um, Different in terms of it's slightly different in terms of interpretation and style. And there are things on the record that, you know, frankly, I mean, you know, if I was, let's say, and this is a question that somebody's probably going to ask, so we get it out of the way now. um, that you know, what's different about you doing your solo stuff to doing stuff with Iron Maiden, and the difference is that, you know, it's not Iron Maiden. When you're doing Iron Maiden, you're, you know, really conscious that you have a, you know, a style to respect and a legacy and a history and everything. But all I have to respect with my solo stuff is the authenticity of the voice, in terms of the song and the way it's presented. So, I mean, an example, for example, is a song like Resurrection Men, which I don't know if people have heard the record yet, but you know, I mean, it sounds like the beginning of a sort of like Quentin Tarantino movie or Morricone or something else like that. And people pick up on that. And I say, well, yeah, well, there's an example where I can join, you know, I can put Ennio Morricone and a bit of, you know, a bit of that sort of spaghetti Western vibe going into like a sort of a Hawkwind type riff, going into this mega sort of like bass Geezer Butler thing that Roy invented in the middle of it. So those sorts of, you know, mashups are things that I can do as a solo artist.
Back in 2008, you wrote your first screenplay for a film, The Chemical Wedding. Do you have any story behind it that you would like to share? And at some point, will you like to write another film?
No, there's if anybody wants to write my my screenplay, there's another couple sitting around at the moment, you know, along with everybody else that's ever created anything. So no, I mean, Chemical Wedding was a long time coming, and I mean, we made that film with we made that budget with a film of with a budget. We made that film, sorry, with a budget of like, I don't know, I can't remember what it was, but let's call it X. And in actual fact, we only had half of X to make the film with. So I had to make a lot of compromises in terms of I mean, it was proper low budget filmmaking. But, you know, it was, you know, there were some bits of it which I thought were great. Other bits, you know, could have been improved on. But it's a quirky, kind of interesting film if you get it. It was originally going to be a period piece about the life of Aleister Crowley, but we had no budget to do period. So I had 600 pages of script about the life of Aleister Crowley that I basically had to throw away and start again. So The Chemical Wedding, the story, came about when we have to bring back Aleister Crowley in the present day for 3 days and say, what does he get up to? Well, that's a whole new story. So we changed the title from, it was going to be called The Number of the Beast, which of course is what Crowley called himself, the Beast 666. We changed the title to The Chemical Wedding because by that time I already had the album out, and I thought that the title track of the album would make a great opening title scene for the movie as well. There you go. It's a bit more than I intended to say, but there you are.
As the concept of the album is full of details and a very interesting story, do you plan to bring those details to the stage with videos or special scenography? And how it's been the chemistry inside the band during the rehearsal so far?
Well, the chemistry inside the band for rehearsals, I can't tell you about that yet because we haven't started. But I mean, I know everybody, and I've played live on stage with Tanya, obviously in South America a lot. So people will have seen me on stage with Tanya. They know what she does. They know obviously with a classical thing, so that's a little bit different to a rock and roll thing. But yeah, we're going to have some screens, we're going to have some videos, but we're not going to have people coming on trying to be actors and stuff like that. It's not that type of record. And of course, we'll be doing a lot of stuff from Accident at Birth and from Chemical Wedding, because I think those are things that, I have to play those things because people haven't heard them for 20 something years. Some people have never heard them. So this is going to be a bit of a celebration. I would expect probably, maybe 4 songs off the new album, and the rest will all be from, everything from Balls to Picasso. And of course, we're going to have to play Tears of the Dragon.
What it was like to premiere Afterglow of Ragnarok in Sao Paulo's Comic Con. Can we expect surprises in the concerts in Brazil?
Sorry, what was the last bit? Something about the prices?
Oh, surprises that
surprises. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
Sorry. No. Well, no, I'm not going to suddenly go, hey, here's a new album that you didn't even know I'd made. No, one's enough for now. But no, I mean, Brazil, the great thing is just going to be there. Is just going to be there on stage in Brazil. It's going to be fantastic with this band. It's an incredible band. I mean, and we're going to have we've got a lot of stuff that we did for the 2 videos for Rain on the Graves and Ragnarok. We've got a lot of special effects stuff we did there that we can put, on the screens. But I'm not going to be using the screens as some kind of choreographed backdrop. We're not playing to a click track. This is not like this is not going to be what you would call a modern show in which the musicians are puppets and there's a computer in the background playing everything. This is all going to be analog, really kind of authentic playing from people. And I want us to jam. I want us to jam like it's 1972.
Nowadays, we live in a world where identity and the notions of truth and reality are in crisis. How do you relate to that? And how will you define what Bruce Dickinson and his music are after so many years?
Well, I mean, on the first part about, truth and reality and what's real, what's not real, what's fake and what's imaginary. I think we all know that the internet and now AI is capable of telling some monumental lies about reality, the state of the world and everything. So there's not a whole lot I could do about that. But certainly with the comic, I can explore the idea of what goes on in the depths of people's subconscious and what goes on in the dark recesses of their minds. and possibly in other worlds as well. So that's one thing. In terms of what we bring to the stage, in terms of like some kind of reality. I mean, the reality is it's the music, man. That's it. I mean, that's the reality. It's like, you know, 6 people standing there on stage doing it, you know.
Vocally, how did you face the recording of a new album? Was it a challenge?
Uh, well, it's only it was only a challenge in respect of just trying to do the right thing for the songs. I mean, certainly the singing part of it is just it's a natural thing. It's either going to happen or it's not going to happen, you know. And if it's not happening right, then you either have to change it or give up or have a day off or something like that, you know. So, but I I work quite quickly when I actually do a vocal, when I get down to it. I mean, it's usually it takes you know, in the studio it takes a day, you know. Sometimes I do 2 in one day, but usually it's like, you know, I do like one day per track. But some of the some of the songs on the album go back a long way. They go back like almost 25 years. So again, so I had tracks that where we had a great vocal that was done as a demo, and it was incomplete. So I had to copy, not copy exactly, but I had to complete the puzzle of the song 20 years later. So it was quite cool actually, because it was like, wow, voice doesn't sound that different 20 years down the track. That's not bad.
As a historian, teacher, and a musician, how do you analyze the substantial changes that the music industry has undergone in recent years, and in which many genres have had to transform in order to remain?
Well, I mean, there's the way that the music industry has, on the one hand, it's done 2 things. On the one hand, if you're an artist, it's contracted, as in it's shrunk in terms of the amount of you know, the amount of money you get paid for your art. Unless you are some massive social media thing or whatever it is, you know, or unless you're a DJ who turns up with a memory stick and gets paid, you know, 5 times what a band gets paid, you know, and they have to split it like 8 ways, and he just turns up with his memory stick and, you know, pretends he's doing something and goes away with a huge amount of money. So the world has gone on its ass from that perspective. And there's not a lot, that any one individual can do about that. You just have to work with the way the world is, you know. So I have no desire whatsoever to be a DJ. I'm a singer. I'm a musician. I have bands and people like that, and they all have to make a living playing with me. So I do the best I can to make sure that everybody's happy, everybody's making a living, and we can go out and play great music. In terms of the way that records are sold, well, records, you know, downloads, things like that. I think that you know, I think it's a lose situation for everybody. I mean, you have all the things like Spotify and stuff like that, who are basically ripping off musicians by paying them next to nothing for playing their work. And still they can't make money. So they're not making money. The musicians aren't getting paid. New bands can hardly afford to start up, but they do. Why? Because they love what they do. It's that drives them. It's that motivates them. So you know, if the streaming services could manage to actually pay people properly for when people listen, which probably means that people listening have to pay more, which you know, I frankly don't object to. And I don't think probably most listeners would. Maybe less people would listen, but it would be people who care, not people who just do it because it's cheap.
Relationship have both the album and comic? Are they independent one from another? I think you already spoken a little bit about that, but if you
Yeah.
can tell us more about it.
Yeah, I mean, so so the comic kind of came out of the album in 2014, but then in the intervening 7 years took on a life completely of its own. So originally it was going to be one comic of like 20 pages, and the album was going to tell a story that was to do with the comic in 2014. But as I developed the story and the characters, I realized that you couldn't link the one with the other so directly, because it was very restrictive for the album, which was sounding amazing. And the comic would grown to being a 3-year project. So what I would say, so there are links. There are some songs that do have references to stuff that goes on in the comic, and there's stuff in the comic which will reference not just this album but other albums that I've done in the past, because I can steal dialogue from myself and drop it in there, which people will recognize and go, oh, hang on a minute, that's a line from, I don't know, wherever, Chemical Wedding or Accident at Birth or something. But I mean, Watchmen does that all the time with various media things throughout its 12 episodes. But so the relationship, I would say, between the two of them now, yeah, it's like you walk into a forest and there's a big tree, and one says the album, and next to it is another big tree and it says the comic, and they are freestanding. They're not leaning on each other. If you chopped one down, the other one would still stay upright, but they are linked, and the bit you can't see is where the roots grow and they tangle up with each other. That's the link. That's the analogy that I would use, the picture, because I think in pictures because I'm dumb.
What is the thing that you enjoy the most about the whole process of making the Mandrake Project?
The thing I enjoy, the two things I enjoy the most is coming up with the ideas and the inspirations and the stories behind the songs. I enjoy that process. And then we're just going to fast forward to listening to the album when it's finished and going, wow, that's amazing. Because in between is a whole world of uncertainty and hard work and scratching your head and being in the studio and pushing little buttons to make things happen, which I realize you have to do, but it's not really as exciting as the initial moment of creation. But the rest of it comes with the package, unfortunately. To get it to go in the, it's one thing to hey, it's like making a baby, I mean, yeah, I mean the initial event is like, yes, and then you have to wait 9 months and then it gets better.
Roy C has been fundamental in the development of your solo career. Since Accident of Birth in 97, he has been the producer until the Mandrake Project. What do you think Roy's contribution has been in the development of your sound?
Yeah, I mean, Roy over the years has been literally in and out of my life at various points, so from when I first met him on Balls to Picasso, and then of course he was off doing his own band for a while, and I went off and did Skunk Works, and then he re-entered my life with Accident of Birth, and we put our kind of rock head, like big metal rock head, back on with that record. But then with Chemical Wedding, we really took it somewhere else. Sonically, he came up with some sounds and some innovations on that record that I think were really groundbreaking. I think that was one of the, metal wise, I think that was one of the most influential records of the decade. So I'm really proud of what we've achieved together. Tyranny of Souls is almost uh, it's kind of like it's a little bit chemical, but it's a little bit of everything. Tyranny of Souls, you know. And of course, by that stage, we weren't touring it anymore. Um, and then fast forward to now, I suppose I've had more input on this record than yeah, that's fair to say that I've there's quite a few songs on this record which are attributed to me, not me and somebody else. Um, but still, I think Roy's effect on the sound, a track like Ragnarok, for example, that big detuned, layered sort of guitar thing. That's very dense kind of sound, and that's something which is kind of new on this record. And of course, Sonata, the track at the end, which is 25 years old. So that was Roy Z 25 years ago. Although the guitar solo at the end is from like earlier this last year. But the rest of the track and the feel and the vibe and everything is from 25 years ago. That's what we sounded like 25 years ago. 80% of the vocal is from 25 years ago.
Creative process of this new album dates back to the work time from the Book of Souls. Is there any influence from the sound of that album in this new work?
No, not at all. No, no. I mean, we did Book of Souls, and we did Book of Souls, and then I got throat cancer, and then I got better, and then we went out and toured like crazy. And then it was and then it was Senjutsu World, So yeah, Book of Souls, by the time I was started doing this record, Book of Souls was like a distant memory.
You were recently at the CCXP in Brazil, and he would like to know what is your relationship, with the geek universe.
With the what universe? Sorry,
the geek universe.
The geek universe. Well, I am a closet geek. I mean, look, I mean, uh, I'm a weird kind of a geek as well, because I basically am like an analog geek. So I'm not crazy about the digital world. I appreciate it has some advantages, but most of the time, it just puts people out of work, and just removes their motivation for thinking for themselves. So but I am a bit of a geek. I love airships, I love rockets, I love space. Obviously I love aeroplanes and things like that, but I love submarines, and a very big fan of trains as well. Any form of mass transportation turns me on.
If you could, work with someone that you haven't worked before, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. That'd be kind of cool. I mean, I only say this because he wrote one of the greatest songs ever recorded by anybody, which is when Johnny Cash did his version of Hurt. But it'd be nice to sit in a room with Trent Reznor and chat to him about how he does what he does, and what his motivations are and things like that. Just there's nobody like burning a hole in my brain saying, "Oh, I must go and work with this person." But I like when you can meet people and you're not working, you're just meeting somebody and chatting to them, and you get some idea of how they put things together. But you only really know that if you're sitting in a studio and or kind of watching them do it.
What do you think about heavy metal nowadays? And what do you think about, metal and fusions?
Metal and fusion. Well, yeah, fusion's always good. I mean, I don't know exactly what he means by fusion, because you've got to have some kind of pure element. That metal is not metal is not a completely pure, definable uh, form of music. I mean, it's got all kinds of different facets to it. So what's heavy now what's heavy metal to one person is like, oh, that's not heavy metal, that's like classic rock, you know, and all this kind of stuff. We have all these categories, you know, and I absolutely have no fucking interest in any of them at all. In terms of all I listen to is, hey, is that a cool track? Is it, does it, you know, it doesn't matter. Is it, if it's, you know, if it's for an example, if it's the, you know, Sepultura, or whether it's the Scorpions, or whether it's Cinderella, or whether it's Uli John Roth, I don't give a shit. All I think is, hey, is this a cool piece of music? That's it. And that's what I was like when I was growing up, because nobody had all these ridiculous categories, you know, like 150 different types of metal. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like how many different varieties of, you know, the herpes virus are there? You know, there's just as many bloody different types of music, and it's insane, you know. So I just listen and think, does that piece of music move me in some way? That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that, you know.
There are many young fans who know your work as a solo artist and later discover your musical legacy. How is your interaction with this audience who are digital natives and whose musical consumption has been very different from when you started in music?
Well, I will welcome to welcome to my analog world. It'll be a shock because you have to, you know, you have to think about a piece of music that is 58 minutes long, and you know, should be enjoyed start to finish. And you can go and pick which track you want and which is your favorite tracks, you know. But really, people need to listen to the record. Um, you won't understand the record unless you listen to it at least once from the beginning to the end, uninterrupted, no distractions. You know, just sit somewhere quietly with headphones on or whatever, and just listen to it.
If you had any sort of charm or anything that you do before you go on stage?
Um, I've touched my toes 10 times. That's it. I touched my toes 10 times, and you'll never see it because I hide behind the curtains when I do it. I know I have a bit of a warm up, nothing, you know, insanely special, but yeah, I have a bit of a stretch. Uh, I've got a big flask of coffee and some water. That's it. That's what's on stage, and me.
What do you think about the high rates the concert organizers add to event price tickets? Is it real? Is this really having a negative impact in music industry?
Uh, well, two things. One, it depends depends what the show is and kind of who the audience are. I mean, I'm not going to go around and say, you know, specific artists, because most of the artists that are charging, you know, like $1,200 a ticket, like in Las Vegas, if you want to go and see the U2 show, I think it was $1,200 for a seat in the Sphere, right? So I've got no interest in paying $1,200, you know, to go and see U2 in the Sphere. None, you know, $100 maybe, you know. But for me, what's important is to try and keep, on the one hand, uh, the right type of tickets at the right price. So by that I mean the right type of tickets. I mean the tickets that are in front of the stage, which everybody says should be the most expensive tickets. Actually, no, they should be the most reasonably priced tickets, because the people who are going to go there to the front of the stage are going to be people who are real fans, people who are kids, people who can't afford the crazy money. But they're the people that need to be down the front. They're the people that are going to keep this music alive, you know. And then you get the people that, you know, they might be fans, but they, you know, they want to bring their wife and they want to, you know, they don't want to get too hot and sweaty and all the rest of it. So, you know, there's some seats at the top or something else like that, whether they're going to pick. And those get priced, you know, differently. I understand how promoters try and do it to try and not lose money, because, you know, promoters are part of the whole ecosystem Without promoters, there would be no shows. The promoters have somehow got to make their money back, you know. It's a delicate balance, but in general, ticket prices have gone through the roof, and some of the ticket prices that people pay, well, some of the prices people pay, for me, it's insane. I would never pay that price. But then again, I'm probably not a fan of that particular artist. So, you know, it's you know, people who are, maybe they think it's worth it. I mean, certainly with my shows, we've always tried to keep the ticket prices within the normal boundaries. And the same with Maiden, you know.
How do you filter your inspirations to choosing your projects, whether it is for Maiden or your solo career?
I wish I could say that I had a plan, but I don't. I just go on instinct, and how much energy I can devote to actually completing something. Because I'm one of these people that has, I mean, when I was a kid, my history teacher accused me of having a brain like a grasshopper, because I would just jump from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing. And I was like, well, why is that a bad thing? And it's not a bad thing, but sometimes you have to finish something that you started, and you can't do six things at once. You know, in fact, you can only do one thing at once, but you can maybe flip from one project to another project, and do it like that. So it's only really, I look at the projects and ideas I have as it's almost like survival of the fittest. It's like Darwinian selection, you know, which one is this is a great idea, but is it going to survive until next week? You know, because given my life and all the pressures on it and things like that. So you have to really pick which project you're going to go with.
Rock has evolved, changed over the years. Both you and your band change and evolve. But if you had the power to go back in time and bring something of that young Bernd Dickinson to today, what will you bring? You know, to that, and what would you say it puts into your future yourself?
What would I bring back from what would I bring back from myself?
Your younger self, yes.
My younger, what would I bring back from my younger self? Yeah, I suppose um nothing, just a body that didn't hurt. Simple as that.
Did you feel a big difference between scripting the story of a graphic novel and writing a song?
Yeah, the two things are quite different actually. So when you're writing when there are elements, I suppose, of things that when you write a song, very often I'll start off writing two or three lines, and I won't even at that point have a story for the song. I won't know what the song is about, or it'll just be those words sound really good with something. I mean, an example would be a song like, you know, Afterglow of Ragnarok, where um, I have no idea why I sang Afterglow of Ragnarok, because it just sounded cool with the chorus when we were writing it. And I thought, oh my God, Afterglow of Ragnarok. What the hell is this all about? So I had to kind of reverse engineer the story of the song. And of course, it was nothing whatsoever to do with the comic. So at that point, when we did the video, I had to create a comic in order to do the video, and in order to relate the song to the comic. So Afterglow of Ragnarok turns out to be a trip. It's like a hallucinogenic trip inspired by drinking Mandrake potion by Dr. Necropolis. There's your get out of jail free card. It was a dream, you know. So so from that perspective, that's the kind of link. But I don't that's it gives you an insight into the way that, you know, the way that we, that you get to think sometimes. And, and actually it is true that, ironically, sometimes, money can play a part in creativity, or lack of money can play a part in creativity, because, you can't go off and say, oh, I want to do this, this, this. You guess what? Yeah, there isn't any money to do that. What are you going to do instead? So when I did the treatment for the video for Afterglow of Ragnarok, I was like, there's no way we can afford to shoot this video. So instead, I turned it into a comic. And with the 8-page, the 8-page introduction comic that goes with the single. So having done that, we then found the video director, Ryan, who did Rain on the Graves with me as well. Great guy. And I said, Ryan, I'd love you to do the video, but we can't afford to do the video that I originally wanted to do. So what video are you going to actually make? And he goes, oh, it's easy. He said, I've read the comic. He said, I'm just going to do the comic. I'm going to do a video of the comic, scene by scene, shot by shot. I went, well, the reason I wrote the comic is because we couldn't afford to film the comic. What are you talking about? He goes, no, I'm going to do it. And he did it. So it was great. So that's what I mean by, sometimes you go around the houses because of something budgetary to do with a video or something, particularly with film, which is like mega expensive no matter what you do. But it forces you to think differently. Yeah, I mean, I am so looking forward to coming down, and Guadalajara is going to be the well, actually, there might be a couple of warm-up shows in the LA area. But maybe I shouldn't have said. Oh well, anyway, never mind. They said it now. But but Guadalajara will be the official opening of the tour, and then Mexico City, which, if we can find our way there through the inevitable traffic jam, then it'll be great. And then we hit Brazil and finish in Sao Paulo, which is going to be, I think, kind of extraordinary. It's going to be a really, really great tour. Really looking forward to it. And then we hit Europe. So no, just come and see us. Pay a visit, pay your respects to the Mandrake Project, and have a chemical wedding on me, and don't have an accident at birth. And but you can all sing Tears of the Dragon as well.